Friday, everybody. What's going on? Welcome into the GOAT Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Neander. Oh, man. So, let's talk about Friday. Let's talk about the movie Friday before we get started here, just because it was on the other day. And I don't know how many times you've seen the movie Friday, but I've seen it probably 100 fucking times. As, listen, a young hippie deadhead in my, teen years in the late 90s and early 2000s, I definitely live that Friday life with Craig and Smokey. That's fucking for sure. But, all right, I digress. Hey, but it is Friday. We got a lot to get to today. Going to review last night's Thursday night football game. Nice game, surprising outcome, but, it was fun. It wasn't super competitive at the end there, but, there was tension throughout the game. We're going to review we're going to preview the other 6 games that we didn't get to. And then we're going to get to our top starters and sleepers on the week to finish it off. So plenty of action today. New segment there with the top starts of the week, as well as some deep sleepers that we have going on here, okay? So let's get started with last night's Thursday night football game. The very impressive Colts coming through with the victory on the road, beating the Tennessee Titans 34-17. It was a strong game for the Colts to come out in the division, and show the division leaders who's boss for right now, right? You gotta love that. And they did it in every facet of the game. There wasn't any one part of the game that was overly impressive for Indy. They played good to really good defense. Their offense was solid. They had some really long drives. They ate up like half the third quarter, I think, on that opening drive there, which was really nice. So overall, some really good things for Indianapolis, and not so good for Tennessee. They ran the ball relatively effectively, as they always do, but could not get the offense moving consistently down the field. Just wasn't happening there. So, what do we have here? All right, let's see. Let's start with the Indianapolis Colts. All right, Phillip Rivers, 308 with a touchdown, 29-39. Solid game, but obviously not good for fantasy. I definitely had him outside of streamable range even after that good game last week. So hopefully he didn't start Phillip Rivers. Again, good game for him and the Colts. Just not a great game for fantasy. Now, the running back to own here, again, as I said, was Nyheim Hines. I didn't want to play Jordan Wilkins or Jonathan Taylor, even though they were the first and second down backs per se. They weren't even that in this game. Nyheim Hines was just getting it going, and they never went away from him. He led the team in carries with 12. There was 8 for Wilkins, 7 for Taylor. He led the team by far in yards per carry, right? He had, ran out a 5.8 clip, 3.5 for Wilkins, 1.7 for Taylor. Jonathan Taylor owners have got to be on full tilt right now. 7 carries for 12 yards. What did he add? 1 reception, 2 receptions for 25 yards. So, that part was respectable. But, what is that? 5.7 points in PPR? That's brutal. And, he started Jordan Wilkins. It wasn't really any better because he didn't have any receptions. So, he actually scored less. He had 2.8 points in PPR formats. And Nyheim Hines, the hero of the evening, 12 carries, 70 yards, and a touchdown on the ground. Another 5 grabs for 45 yards. And, oh, yes, another trip to the promised land, back into the end zone. 2 touchdowns for Nyheim Hines. Almost 30 points in PPR formats. It looks like 28.5 or so. And gotta love it, Nyheim Hines. If you played him, you were happy. I'm not going to say I had him as a must start, but I believe I did say if I was going to start one of these running backs, it would be Hines. And that was the way to go. Sorry, y'all. All right, so let's go to the outside here. Rookie Michael Pittman, hey. So, this was one I kind of missed here. Second game coming back from injury, led the team in targets with 8, caught 7 balls for 101 yards. Very, very good game for Michael Pittman. Obviously not like some, spectacular game, but the arrow is obviously trending upward for Michael Pittman here. Being the target leader and just being the most effective with his targets. He looks like the guy they want to get involved. He also had a rush in this game, a 21-yard rush, not something to be overlooked there. So they're looking to get him a little bit more involved as a playmaker overall. Love to see that. T.Y. Hilton caught 4 or 5 targets for 40 yards. At least it could have been worse, right? But T.Y. Hilton is absolutely trending downward. And then, Zach Pascal caught 4 or 5 targets for 33. If I remember correctly, he almost had a touchdown grab there. So, and then let's talk about these tight ends here. Trey Burton and Mo Alley Cox competing for targets with Jack Doyle out. Burton had 3 of them. Cox had 4 of them. 3 for 19 for Cox, 3 for 24 for Burton. So, basically a half a point separating these guys in the end there. And neither one was very good, right? Didn't really do much for you. So there you go. Going forward, it's still, a situation where unless someone's hurt, or unless more than one person is hurt, it's hard to play one of these tight ends here. All right. Ryan Tannehill came out on that first drive, had that touchdown. I had recommended to my loving niece and goddaughter not to play Ryan Tannehill. Madison, if you're listening, I love you. And, he had that one great drive. I was like, oh, crap. I told her not to play Tannehill again. And he's going to go off somehow. I didn't think he was going to. And then it really came back down to earth from there. 147 yards and a touchdown on the evening. Couldn't really get much going after that first quarter there. Derrick Henry, 19 for 103. And caught 1 pass for 6 yards. And this is the problem with Derrick Henry. He's very consistent. You love the high floor. You love the touches. If he doesn't get into the end zone or have like some amazing day, you're going to have these games where he's a very good running back. 19 carries for 103. He looked really good. He made some really nice plays, but sorry, I'm short of breath here. But for Derrick Henry to have, this good of a game as a running back, but to score so few points for you, it just hurts. 103 yards, he scored, what was it, 11.9 points. That doesn't do it for you. So, it's just frustrating. You don't get the reception. So without the touchdowns, there's nothing going. Dante Foreman, kind of returned from the dead here. A couple of injury years with Houston. Great to see him on the field. He did run the ball 7 times, not well for 18 yards, but he did catch a 5-yard touchdown pass. Just interesting to see if they try to work someone else in on third downs and, passing downs. I don't know if Foreman, is that guy, but it's just interesting to see that they're giving someone else that much work. 7 carries is a lot for somebody that's not Derrick Henry for the Tennessee Titans. Then let's go to the outside here. Corey Davis did wind up playing, tied for the team lead in targets with 6, caught 5 balls for 67 yards. Solid game. Nothing special, but a solid game. A.J. Brown killed your team, and of course he was started probably, 90+% of leagues. 4 targets, he caught 1 ball for 21 yards. That hurts. That really hurts. That's a bad game. And then, nobody else was expected to really have a big part of the game for wide receivers. Jonnu Smith, tight end, had 6 targets, caught 2 balls for 14 yards. So if you played against Jonnu Smith, you were like, sweet. He wasn't involved at all. But of course, had to have the 1-yard touchdown run on the jet sweep. It was nice. He's fast, and it was, was uncontested essentially. But Derrick Henry owners needed it, and people playing against Jonnu Smith didn't need it. But, the other side of that coin is that Jonnu Smith owners were very happy that he was still very playable here because he got the touchdown, and that wound up giving him, 9.5 points. So you can't be too upset, with 9.5 points. It could have been worse. It could have been 3.4 without that stupid rushing touchdown. Obviously, if you can't tell, I am playing against Jonnu Smith. Now, so very impressive again for the Colts to come out with this victory. Looking good, tough game fantasy-wise for the Titans. The only asset that really, did anything for you. You had Corey Davis, who had an okay game. You had Jonnu Smith, who had an okay to good game. And that was it. And in your Colts, Nyheim Hines, Michael Pittman, nice game. Nyheim Hines, great game. I don't know what the start percentage was for Hines, but probably not overwhelmingly high. Okay. All right, let's pick it back up with the rest of our preview here. We got 6 games to run through before we get to our starts of the week and our sleepers of the week. So let's start it out in Arizona with my Buffalo Bills. Traveling out there to Arizona, 7-2 Buffalo, 5-3 Arizona. Let's get some numbers here. We've got Buffalo getting 2.5 points on the road. highest over-under of the week, I believe, 56.5 at the time. I don't know how I feel about this. I almost get the feeling like this is a game where the offenses can struggle. I don't know why. It's just one of those feelings. Could be some Buffalo fan. It's like that gut feeling you don't want to trust it, right? But so let's talk about these guys. Injuries not overwhelmingly a factor in this game. You do have Kenyon Drake practicing in a limited fashion. It's outside chance that he might get some work in this game, but I don't think he's going to play this week. I think he'll have one more week off, and then he'll be back on the field next week. But as of this time on Friday, we haven't heard anything about Friday's practice. It's still pretty early on the West Coast, and so at this point, I'll give you both scenarios, but I'm not expecting Kenyon Drake to play. All right, let's talk about Buffalo and who we're playing. You're absolutely playing Josh Allen. Finally had another monster game last week against Seattle. Maybe back on track. He's got a healthy John Brown, or a healthy enough John Brown to be out there and playing. And, you're going to be playing Josh Allen. There's no doubt about that. Now, in the backfield, another week, another recommendation to not play Buffalo Bills running backs. Zach Moss is essentially touchdown dependent right now, and Devin Singletary is not getting enough volume. They're not running the ball. They're saying, hey, we don't run the ball well. We pass the ball really well. Let's focus on that part of our game. They're running just enough to keep people honest. But Allen runs the ball a little bit too. We'll see. I think that you need to run the ball a little bit more just to keep teams honest. Keep those attempts, at least 20 attempts a game with running backs. But I'm not playing either of these guys this week. And then, Stephon Diggs is a must play. John Brown, I think, can be trusted as a flex play this week. Looked good last week. We saw the offense overall look a lot better with John Brown back in the game. And I think that Josh Allen realizes that. The offense just runs better with John Brown. Not expecting huge numbers here, but I think John Brown can have a solid game with a good 6 targets or so. So I'm willing to play John Brown as a flex. And, I know Cole Beasley very well might have a decent game. I'd be willing to play him as a flex wide receiver in PPR-only formats. But because of his limited ceiling, I just think there's so many wide receivers out there that have the possibility for a bigger boom week that I think you leave Cole Beasley out there unless your team is like all boom or bust. And you just need some guys out there that can give you that floor. I do think he has a solid floor. So I hear you if that's your logic, if that's your narrative, I hear you. But I'm going to leave Cole Beasley this week. And, if I leave 12 points, 14 points on the bench, I still hope I'm playing somebody that has the potential to score 20 points on the week. So that's my mind frame. That's what I'm thinking. Let's talk about Arizona Cardinals. Obviously, you're playing Kyler Murray. He's in fuego. Chase Edmonds, you're playing him. If you have him on your team, if you got him, whether you drafted him or you got him in the waiver wire, I don't think Kenyon Drake is going to play. If we get some kind of word today, it's Friday, if Kenyon Drake has like a full practice today and they're like, he's going to be in, maybe you start to question it. But I think with the way running back looks right now, no matter what, if you're a Kenyon Drake owner, he's going to be in one of your running back slots, and I'm fine with it. Nuck Hopkins, tough week last week, but DeAndre is going to be in your lineup. And Christian Kirk, I have very, very, very solid feelings about him as a very playable wide receiver 3 with high-end wide receiver 2 upside, and I think he should be in your lineup this week. Larry Fitzgerald, is always playable, just like I just talked about with Cole Beasley for that floor, but with that limited ceiling, he's not someone I want to touch. Both these teams, I don't play tight ends on. I know that historically Arizona's been bad against tight ends. But Tyler Kroft just scored. Dawson Knox is there. I don't know if tight end is ever going to be a thing in Buffalo with Josh Allen. So not going to be willing to play either of the tight ends in this game. But high over under here. So get some Bills in your lineup. Get some Cardinals in your lineup. Get them out there. Also this game, another high over under here. Not surprisingly, Seattle Seahawks traveling to LA to take on the Rams. Great interdivisional matchup here. 6-2 Seahawks, 5-3 Rams. Over under 54.5. LA giving 1.5. Color me shocked. I know that Bills just scored a lot on Seattle. Don't seem like they can stop anyone. And I know this game is on the road. I am shocked that Seattle is an underdog here. Just really am. Really surprised about that. I know it's only a point and a half, but my money would be on Seattle if I had any. No. All right, so let's talk about injuries in this game. We do have some people to worry about here. Seattle Seahawks, Chris Carson, Carlos Hyde, Travis Homer, the trio still up in the air. So, Hyde didn't practice on Thursday again. I thought this was for sure like a foregone conclusion that Chris Carson was going to be back this week. Doesn't seem to be that way. He seems to be ahead of Carlos Hyde in probability. Hyde with the hamstring didn't practice on Thursday and is likely not to play. Travis Homer with a knee was a limited practice participant on Thursday, and he's questionable also. So I don't know what to do here. If you told me Chris Carson and Carlos Hyde were out again, even if Travis Homer plays, I would still play DJ Dallas again. And it's just that someone's got to be there, right? And he's been doing just well enough, and they throw the ball well enough that I don't think they're stressing it. So if they have to play DJ Dallas, they'll give him whatever carries they need to. They'll use him, and they're going to try to win the game with Russell Wilson's arm. End of the story. So just monitor the situation. If Chris Carson is in, if he's playing, I'm going to play Chris Carson. And then I'm not going to play any other Seahawk running back if Carson is active. If Chris Carson is not active, and Carlos Hyde is not active, as I suspect, then yeah, I'm starting DJ Dallas as a low-end running back 2, but that's still a starter. That's a guy in the top 24, which means that you want him in your lineup. So, to review here with Seattle, you're playing Russell Wilson. I think you're playing Chris Carson if he plays. If he doesn't, I think you're playing DJ Dallas. And of course you're playing DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Those both go without saying. Tyler Lockett still goes without saying. You could be a little nervous because DK Metcalf is having so many big games. That's fine. But Tyler Lockett's a must-play. David Moore's not there for me yet. He has upside every week. I think that if you were to make an argument that you want to play him in your flex, I couldn't argue with you. But on a week-to-week basis, we know who's going to get targets. And for me, David Moore's not that guy. And as soon as Chris Carson comes back, which could be this week, I just think that limits, opportunities for anybody that's not DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. So that's where I'm going there. Greg Olsen, Jacob Hollister, they're all splitting too much work as tight ends, pretty much touchdown dependent, and I don't want to do it this week with Seahawks tight ends. Let's talk about the Rams here. Listen, great matchup for the offense, right? We know that Seattle's been giving up tons and tons of points and yards and everything. They score a lot, so other teams have to come back down and score, and that they do. Injuries here, Darrell Henderson, limited participant in Thursday's practice, as was Cooper Kupp. Now, as of now, I would be expecting both of them to be active and playing, so I am going to go forward at this point as if that is the case. I'll give you some other scenarios here, if they're not playing. Jared Goff, absolutely right near the top, if not at the top of streamers for this week. We know what quarterbacks have been doing to Seattle's secondary, and while it may not be some top 3 game for Jared Goff, I think him being in the top 10 is almost a foregone conclusion. So, love playing Jared Goff this week, as a lot of people do. I don't want to play Rams running backs this week, so I just said to you that, Darrell Henderson will probably be active, and so let's say he is active. I don't want to play him, with the possibility that he comes back out with injury, with the timeshare, and with Seattle not really being bad against the run, per se. It's just all those things lead me to not want to play Darrell Henderson if he's active. Let's say he's not active. Would I play Malcolm Brown or Cam Akers? I suppose I'd be playing Malcolm Brown with the assumption that they're going to be moving the ball pretty well and might find themselves, with some goal-to-go opportunities. That seems to be where they give Malcolm Brown the ball. So if Henderson was out and I had to, have my arm twisted, sure, I would play Malcolm Brown in a pinch over Cam Akers, but I wouldn't want to do that. Kupp and Woods for right now are both in my lineup. Let's say Kupp is out. Yes, I think you elevate Josh Reynolds and you play him. I think you run out Sunday morning. If they say Cooper Kupp is out, you run out, you grab Josh Reynolds and you throw him in that flex spot. The volume will be too much to ignore for whoever can step into that role, and it's much more likely to be Josh Reynolds than Van Jefferson, the rookie out of Florida. Van Jefferson could be a dart throw, especially in DFS if Kupp is out. But no, I'd be willing to put a little bit of money on Josh Reynolds as the guy. And then if Kupp is out, I think you also increase the value of both Gerald Everett and Tyler Higbee, who are both outside my top 12, not tight ends I want to start, but are guys that could easily be in the top 12 with the way tight ends are, outside the top 3 or 2 at this point most weeks. Anything can happen. Doesn't take that many points to sneak in there. So if you're asking me, do I want to start Tyler Higbee or Gerald Everett? No, I don't want to start either of these guys. But I guess Gerald Everett's the guy to start if you're picking one. And it sucks to say that. We all had such high hopes for Mr. Higbee going into the season. Well, many of us did. All right. Let's go down to New Orleans next. The San Francisco 49ers traveling to New Orleans to take on the Saints. And let's pull up some info here. All right, so we know that the 49ers are going to get a couple of weapons back. Not all of them, obviously. But it's still going to be Nick Mullins for running backs. Tevin Coleman is still questionable. Raheem Mostert is still out. So it looks like Jerick McKinnon and JaMycal Hasty. Hasty's been terrible with the opportunities that he's had. And now that Jerick McKinnon maybe looks like he's over his tired legs, maybe he'll be back in a full-time, role for this game. So for this game, I think Jerick McKinnon is a must-start because it looks like he's going to get the bulk of the work. Hasty was very disappointing with the work that he got. And while he will be in the mix, and it's possible Coleman's in the mix, and it's a bad matchup, I know, all that stuff, right? Got to play Jerick McKinnon. I think the targets will be there, and the work will be there. Nick Mullins, no, he's not on my radar for streamers, so I'm going to stay away from that. Let's talk about the wide receivers, though, here. Debo, we don't know if Debo Samuel is going to be back. Let's see if there's any more information just recently here. He didn't practice on Thursday, so I'm going to go with the assumption that he's not going to play, meaning that you have Brandon Ayuk, the rookie, you have Richie James, who just had a monster game, and then you have Trent Taylor, to a lesser degree. You got some guys out there. Who am I going to play? I'm playing Brandon Ayuk out of all these guys. They seem to want to get him involved when he's healthy, runs the ball a little bit. They just got him all over the field. Now, Richie James, am I willing to play? Yes, I'm willing to play Richie James with the understanding that it could blow up in my face. Sorry. You just have to know that. It could blow up in your face if you play Richie James. It could be a complete bust week. Getting Ayuk back, offense will look a little bit different. Who knows what's going to happen here in this game on the outside. So Brandon Ayuk is the only Niners wide receiver that I'm ready, willing, and able to throw into my starting lineup here. Tight ends, I'm still not doing it with Jordan Reed. I hear you. Last week he was knocking the rust off and getting healthy and blah, 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 blah. How many years I can hear this shit for. Just can't do it with Jordan Reed. I'm sorry. If I miss the big game, I'll be fine with that. There's just other tight ends I'm much more willing to play than taking the risk on Jordan Reed. And quite frankly, in the same game, on the same team, I'm more willing to play Ross Dwelly than I am Jordan Reed. Very low ceiling, touchdown dependent for all intents and purposes, but for all intents and purposes or all intensive purposes? I never looked that up. You tell me, intense end or intensive? Can you even tell when I say it? For all intents and purposes. Who knows? But maybe you'll let me know. I'll play Dwelly, though. I'll take that. Let's go over here to the Saints. Drew Brees is a fine play. He's been a quarterback one for, I think, 3 or 4 weeks in a row now. Playing really well, with what he's got. He's got Michael Thomas back. I know he said Michael Thomas is questionable. He should be playing in this game. I'm ready to go with Drew Brees. That's fine. He's, for me, lower ceiling because he's not having those 350, 400-yard games with 3 and 4 touchdowns, which is what you have to be a top 3, top 4, guy. Or you have to have rushing upside, obviously. Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, guys like that. So, Alvin Kamara must start, no question. Latavius Murray is one of those guys week to week where you're just hoping for a little more usage. And then some weeks there's those 12 carries and you're happy, and then some weeks there's those 5 to 6 carries and you're not happy. I'm not going to play him at this point against a pretty tough matchup when he's got his weapons back. I think they're going to want to go, full systems ahead with their offense, roll Kamara out there, and start rolling towards the playoffs here. On the outside, yeah, I'm playing Michael Thomas for sure. He's still Michael Thomas. Hopefully the second week back, and we'll get a bigger game out of him. Other than that, I am holding off on the other weapons here. Emmanuel Sanders is somebody that's outside my top 36. So, for me, he's definitely not a recommended play. He's someone you can play in your flex with back-end wide receiver 2 upside maybe at the most. But that's not someone I really usually want to put into my lineup. Nobody else there. Traquan Smith, Marquez Callaway at this point with everybody else healthy, with Michael Thomas namely healthy. I'll stay away from all those options. And Jared Cook is just the bubble touchdown dependent tight end, right? I do think he is more likely than most of these touchdown dependent tight ends to score. So yeah, if you're just swinging for the fences and you're punting tight end looking for that touchdown, Jared Cook's better than most. I know that's not a ring endorsement. Sorry, Jared Cook. My apologies. I do like you. All right, here. Let's pick it up here so we can get to these starters and sleepers. Cincinnati Bengals traveling to Pittsburgh, taking on the Steelers. Another nice divisional matchup here. Undefeated Steelers looking to stay that way at home, and I have a feeling that they will. I think that looks like there's no lines because we don't know about Ben Roethlisberger, so they haven't locked in the lines yet or the spread. But I think that Ben Roethlisberger will get through COVID protocol in time. At this point, he still had a number of days of negative tests in a row. If he has another negative test today, I don't see any reason to think it's not going to be fine. So, we'll talk about all the scenarios. Okay. Sorry, I hope you got that. Didn't think I just had like a seizure. Okay. Cincinnati. I don't want to play Joe Burrow. I know he's having a really nice rookie season, but we saw in a really tough matchup against Baltimore that he was, shut down and had that first really kind of rookie game. And I do think that there's a chance that this will happen again in Pittsburgh. And I'm just not willing to play Burrow. I think there's other guys that I'm willing to play outside the top 12 over Burrow this weekend. There's a lot of them, quite frankly. So, yeah, I'm staying away from Burrow. That's my recommendation. Now, in the backfield, if Joe Mixon makes the start, which I don't think he's going to play at this point, but if Joe Mixon makes the start, I am probably going to keep him on my bench. If you're the Mixon owner, you've been, hopefully you've been doing okay without him. If not, your season might be over anyway, but if it's not, then you've been doing okay without him. So I think you keep doing what you're doing. It's a bad matchup. His foot problem just seems to be very persistent and doesn't want to go away. And I'd be too worried about him leaving the game after he comes back in. He didn't practice Wednesday or Thursday. I need to see a full practice on Friday to feel good about playing him. And I don't think that's going to happen. So let's talk about Gio Bernard. If Joe Mixon is out, as I suspect he will be, yeah, I'm playing Gio Bernard absolutely as a running back too. Sure, the ceiling is, I don't even want to say the ceiling is limited. It's only limited by the perception of the matchup. It is a tough matchup. I totally get that. What's Pittsburgh giving up 102 yards a game rushing? So, yeah, they're a stout defense on the ground. I get it. But he gets work through the air. And if he's the only game in town, I think it's going to be fine. I think he's going to have enough points. If they're playing from behind, he'll get the receptions. If they're in the game, then he'll get the work in the volume. So, yeah, if Mixon's out, I'm playing Bernard with confidence. Absolutely. You'll hear more about that later, foreshadowing. Okay, let's go outside for the Bengals here. Let's keep ranking these guys, and I think I'm still going to keep going right now with Higgins, Boyd, Green. So Green is outside of my recommended starts. Boyd is a wide receiver 3, so an absolute start for me with wide receiver 2 upside. And then Higgins is a back-end wide receiver 2 with high-end wide receiver 2 upside. I know I don't love Burrow in this game, but target's got to go somewhere. So I do think that Higgins and Boyd are definitely going to be in your lineup here, staying away from A.J. Green. staying away from, Drew Sample or any other options here. That's where I'm going with the Bengals. Now let's talk about Pittsburgh here. Let's say Big Ben is, Big Ben is active. Yeah, you're going to play him. I know he didn't get to practice all week, but he knows the system inside and out. Maybe the rest will actually be okay for him. It might not be the worst thing. And he's been playing decently as of late. I know it wasn't a great game in Dallas last week, but for fantasy purposes, it was just fine. So I'd absolutely be willing to trot Big Ben out there, assuming he's active. Let's go forward, and we'll go all the scenarios. James Conner, I think you're playing either way. No matter who's the quarterback, I think you're going to play James Conner in this matchup. And then on the outside, I'm going to say if Mason Rudolph is the quarterback, I'd be willing to sit probably all of them. Honestly, Juju, Deontay Johnson, and Chase Claypool. The one I would probably play would be Deontay Johnson because we saw a nice rapport with him and Mason Rudolph last year, much more so than with Juju. Obviously, we didn't get to see anything with the rookie Claypool. So, if it does wind up being Mason Rudolph, I'd probably start Deontay Johnson with low expectations. And if I could, I'd be pivoting away from Juju and Chase Claypool. Now, let's say that Big Ben is active and is the starter. Yeah, you're playing all three of these guys. It's just about what your expectations are, right? I think that Deontay Johnson has probably the highest ceiling because of the target potential in PPR. I know Chase Claypool had the one monster game, so his ceiling seems higher. That's an outlier. I think Deontay Johnson has a higher ceiling for this game, so he would probably be the one I would rank the highest. But Juju and Chase Claypool would not be far behind, and I expect all of them to be somewhere in wide receiver 2 range. Honestly, I really do, if Big Ben is playing. And then, yeah, Eric Ebron, if Big Ben is playing, is right in that category with Jared Cook, a higher, a mid-probability touchdown-dependent tight end. He could still have 4 or 5 catches for 40, 50 yards, and it won't kill your team. But, there's no way he's going to have some huge yardage or target game. So, to me, that's touchdown-dependent. All right, let's go to our night games here. Baltimore Ravens at the New England Patriots in Foxborough. And let's see what the line is here. We got the Baltimore Ravens giving 7 points on the road to the Patriots in a low over-under game, 43.5. So obviously Vegas does not think that New England will be able to score on Baltimore, and that should give you a lot of hesitation for playing your Patriots. So let's talk about Baltimore. Let's talk about Lamar Jackson. And let's just be honest. You're still going to play Lamar Jackson more than likely. I don't love the play because the passing work has been terrible. But if he has 80 yards and a touchdown on the ground, the floor, is so high that, of course, you're going to play him. So I think you're going to have Lamar Jackson in there. I don't want to play these running backs. Mark Ingram didn't practice on Thursday. So if I was going to make an assumption, I'd say Mark Ingram is not going to play on Sunday night, and then I would play Gus Edwards, and then I would play J.K. Dobbins, right? I think Edwards is a solid play. I know Dobbins is the rookie, so they're going to want to see him more, blah, 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 blah. You put the ball in their hands. I think Edwards, has looked a little bit better to me, honestly. He's the guy to give the ball around the goal line. I just have a feeling it's going to be a Gus Edwards game if Mark Ingram's out, and I think that's the expectation. So I'm not recommending to play J.K. Dobbins. You could if you're in a pinch, but I do think that you want to play Gus Edwards. And then on the outside, what do you do with these guys? I don't know. I mean, I'm not starting Marquise Hollywood Brown with any confidence. You could play him because the upside's always there. The big play is always a possibility with Hollywood Brown, but I'm not willing to bet on it this week. Even with Gilmore possibly injured, I don't know if he's expected to play. He's still questionable. Whether he's in or out, I just don't trust Lamar Jackson hitting the big play. Mark Andrews, you have to play. As a tight end, there's just so few tight ends that really have that upside of multiple touchdowns on any given week. And it really can happen any week with Mark Andrews. It's been disappointing, but who are you going to play over him? Maybe you get a handful more points, but I'm going to go for the upside usually with my tight end. So, and in New England, I'm going to make it, pretty easy for you. I'm not playing any Patriots. There's so many good matchups out there that I think you can find people to play outside of these teams. Now, Damian Harris, if you told me on Friday he got a full practice for Damian Harris, I might be willing to play him this week. The rushing work has been really good for Damian Harris. The yards per carry, the efficiency, passing the eye test, it's all been there. But there's no passing down work, and they're not in the red zone very much. And when they are, the touchdowns get vultured by Cam Newton. So that's still just a decent floor, low ceiling running back play. That you can say, all right, well, if I just hope I'm getting 8 to 10 points out of my running back, you play Damian Harris. But without the touchdown, without the passing work, the ceiling is super limited. Jacoby Myers has been excellent, but I am expecting N'Keal Harry back this week. So let's say N'Keal Harry is back. I just think it spreads it so thin that I don't want to play either one of these guys. If N'Keal Harry is out again, then yeah, I'm willing to play Jacoby Myers in a bad matchup in a game I don't like for the Patriots. But if he's going to force feed Jacoby Myers targets all game long, then yeah, I'm willing to play him, in my lineup only if N'Keal Harry's out. So that's the caveat. N'Keal Harry's got to be out, and then I'll play him. All right, let's move to Monday Night Football. Minnesota Vikings taking on the Chicago Bears. In this game, I do like playing your Vikings here. I don't love Dalvin Cook. I don't love Kirk Cousins as my streamer here, but I do like his receiving options here in this game. I know that goes against, kind of logic there a little bit, but I do like playing him. So, let's talk about Minnesota first here. Kirk Cousins, not going to recommend playing him. Chicago's been really good against, opposing quarterbacks and seem to be tightening up a little bit more lately. Dalvin Cook must start. Adam Thielen, up and down, disappointing games, I understand, but I think he needs to be in your lineup here. This is going to be a get-right game, I think, for Adam Thielen. I expect him to be, a high-end wide receiver 2 at least this week. Going out on a little bit of a limb there, but going to take it. Justin Jefferson, I also want to play this week. I know that it's been a tough road for both of these guys. I think Chicago knows that they're going to look to get Dalvin Cook going, and they're going to be really loading up the box against Dalvin Cook. And I think that's going to open up some big plays on the outside. I'm looking for a big, long touchdown from Justin Jefferson this week. Outside of that, I know Irv Smith had the 2 touchdowns last week, but he's on the lower probability touchdown-dependent scale for me. That's where he is. He lives as a touchdown-dependent tight end in my world, but he's on the lower probability side. So I'm going to stay away from Irv Smith this week. And for the Bears, man, I'm staying away from most Bears, quite honestly. I mean, Nick Foles, you could play him here, but there's just other streamers I like better than Foles. He's a middle-of-the-pack streamer at best for me, at best. Now, David Montgomery, as far as I know, still in concussion protocol. And it hasn't gotten out of it yet. So if David Montgomery is active and he clears concussion protocol, yeah, he's going to be in my lineup. He'll have the volume to warrant starting in your lineup there, as a low-end running back 2 with maybe high-end running back 2 upside if he gets 25, touches. That's about it. But if he's in my lineup, I am going to play him. If he's active, I'm going to play him. If Montgomery's not active, I'm not going to pivot to Cordarrelle Patterson or Ryan Nall. I think Ryan Nall looked really good with the catches he got last week. I just don't trust, Matt Nagy, to do, what makes sense if Montgomery's out, which to me would be look at what looks good, get him the ball a little bit and see what happens, which is Ryan Nall. So staying away from it if Montgomery's out. On the outside, obviously you're playing Allen Robinson. And then for me, it's Robinson, Mooney, and Anthony Miller. I don't really want to play either of those 2 this week. They're both outside my top 36, Miller and Mooney. So, but Mooney obviously has the higher upside at this point. He's getting the work. He's getting the more, the high value targets, the more interesting routes. They're just doing more creative things with Mooney. So I think he has a bright future in this offense, and maybe in a few weeks. But this week I'm going to hold off on Mooney. And yeah, Jimmy Graham. We're going to talk about him shortly, but I think you're definitely starting Jimmy Graham. I don't see what the argument is against playing Jimmy Graham at this point, other than the fact that, yeah, we were all kind of making fun of the Bears for signing him earlier in the year, but you got to just say when you're wrong. I mean, you know, in this game, fantasy football, whether you call yourself an analyst, an expert, a hobbyist, whatever, a hardcore fan, whatever you want to call yourself, right? Everyone gets shit wrong and has some that they hit, right? It's about that percentage, how much you're willing to put yourself out there, and how much you hit, right? But fuck, believe me, I watch a lot of podcasts, listen to a lot of fantasy football. They all take swings and miss on a weekly basis. So will you, so will I. And, most of us missed on Jimmy Graham. I didn't see anybody saying this was a great pickup. He's going to be a great tight end, and he has been. He's, what is he? He's like a top 7 tight end. I know that's not points per game. He's played every game, but he's been really consistent and a really good tight end. So I think you're going to play him this week. So, all right. That's the end of the previews. That are all the games. Now, we are going to start a couple of new quick segments here because we did run a little bit long. So, we're going to burn through these 2 quick segments, but first, we're going to go with starts of the week and deep sleepers, okay? So, let's talk about quarterbacks here. Starts of the week. My favorite start of the week outside the top 12. Now, all of these starts and sleepers are based on ECR, expert consensus rankings. I go to Fantasy Pros for the ECR, and basically for quarterbacks, I'm looking outside the top 12 for my start of the week, and outside the top 20 for my deep sleeper of the week. For running backs, it's outside the top 24 for starters, outside the top 48 for sleepers. Same thing for wide receivers, and then for tight ends, it goes back to quarterbacks here, outside the top 12 and outside the top 20, because you only play one typically at those positions. So, all right. Quarterback start of the week. Drew Lock, Denver Broncos quarterback at the Las Vegas Raiders. He is ECR quarterback number 18. Last 2 weeks, he's been throwing the ball quite a lot compared to before that, right? So the last 3 games, he's been over 40 attempts. The game versus KC wasn't good, but the last 2 weeks have been pretty darn good versus the Chargers and at Atlanta. He's been running the ball a little bit. So, I'm okay with it. I like it. I think he's been throwing the ball a lot down the field. Jerry Jeudy's, coming up. KJ Hamler. It's all just kind of gelling, and I feel that the arrow is trending upward for the Denver Broncos offense as a whole. So, I really like Drew Lock this week above a number of these guys that are ahead of him, right? So, sorry, I should have had that up already here. I got a little bit behind. I want to see who else is ahead of him. Week 10 rankings. What do we have here? All right, so who's ahead of Mr. Drew Lock? I definitely like him more than Joe Burrow. In the same game, I like him over Derek Carr. I did like him over Ryan Tannehill. I know it's after that, but I said I didn't like Tannehill. All right. Quarterback deep sleeper is Alex Smith from the Washington football team. He is at the Detroit Lions. He is the quarterback 26 on the week right now. Now, it's going to be up and down. There's probably going to be bad moments. There's probably going to be turnovers. But he's going to launch the ball out there enough that I think it's going to be a worthwhile play. And I only want to bring up his name because he's, again, ECR 26. So if you're thinking about playing Matthew Stafford in the same game, I like Alex Smith better, honestly, in this game. I like him over Daniel Jones versus Philadelphia. I like him over Joe Burrow at Pittsburgh. So, I understand that's a very risky play, but I might have Alex Smith out there in some DFS for a real cheap guy so I can go out there and spend big on some wide receivers. I think Alex Smith is going to have a deceptively good game. I'm looking for 250 and 2. At least on the week here, but I think it's very possible he hits 300 yards this week. So, I know, that's deep, buddy. That sleeper is deep. That's a fucking comatose zombie-like fucking sleeper. All right, let's go to running backs here. I'm going to try to talk about some guys that, they seem like they should be started, but I do feel like there's a lot of hesitancy about these guys. There's a lot of question marks. People aren't confident in these plays. So, right now, I'm going to say my running back I'm very confident in playing is Giovanni Bernard. He's the running back 27 at Pittsburgh. And I think he's the running back outside the 24 that has by far the highest probability of ending inside the top 15 or so. Whether or not Mixon plays, quite honestly, I think they're going to have to go to Bernard. They're going to want to rest Mixon, not overwork him. But I do think that Mixon will be out this week. And with Mixon out, I have a lot of confidence in the volume that Gio Bernard's going to get and the passing down work that Gio Bernard's going to get. My second running back start is Gus Edwards. The Gus bus. At New England, he's the ECR 35 running back. And again, I'm going to assume that Mark Ingram is out. That's the way I'm reading it. Don't think Ingram's going to play. I do think Dobbins will get some work. But I think Gus Edwards is the guy they trust. When they need touchdowns, when they need first downs, I think they're going to want to get back to their rushing dominance in this game. And I'm looking for a lot of rushing attempts for this Baltimore team in this game. And I feel good about starting Gus Edwards as my flex, as a running back 3, with very high floor. Honestly, a really nice high floor. Now, my deep running back sleeper this week, Chris Thompson, running back for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I know, that's like fucking Loch Ness deep, okay? Running back 49 on the week. Now, hear me out. Got some passing down work last week with Luton in, right? We know they're not giving James Robinson enough passing down work. It should be more, quite frankly. I'm pissed that they're not giving James Robinson more targets, but either way, they're not doing it. Last week, they didn't do it again, right? So once they needed third downs, they needed passing downs, it was Chris Thompson. They're at Green Bay this week. It's very possible they're down 21-0 after a quarter, right? I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying, after the first quarter or maybe, 10 minutes left in the second quarter, they might be down 3 scores. And if and when that happens, you're going to see a lot more of Chris Thompson on that field. And it could be that kind of game where he's a 10-plus target kind of option, right? Like we just saw with who had, just had 14 fucking targets. I'm trying to remember. I can't remember now who just had 14 targets, but it was crazy. Either way, I think this could be that kind of game for Chris Thompson, and it's a gamble for sure. You could absolutely get fucking hosed on this pick. No doubt you can get skunked here, but you're looking for someone outside that no one else is looking at. Maybe in DFS. Chris Thompson, man, I'm telling you, shit, if I hit that one, that's huge. Chris Thompson's a ballsy pick. All right, let's go to wide receivers here. Talking about wide receivers outside the top 24, I think are very likely to wind up inside the top 20, if not higher than that. Devontae Parker, wide receiver number 27 right now in ECR, at home against the Chargers. Tua Tagovailoa, looking pretty good. I think he's going to, continue to look good against a Chargers team that gives up, points through the air, quite frankly. And I think that without Preston Williams, that you're going to see a lot of work for Devontae Parker here. You saw last week, as soon as Preston Williams got knocked out of the game, that you had Devontae Parker stepping right into, pretty much all of that work. And I think that he'll be a highly targeted player this week for the Dolphins. I think you want to have him in your lineup, top 20. Also, in the same game, I'm going to go with Mike Williams here. The ECR wide receiver 33. I'm looking for a big touchdown play from Mike Williams this week. I think we're going to see Tua take a couple of big shots down the right side of the field. They keep bootlegging him to the left. I get it. He's a lefty, right? At some point, you got to change that up. I see him going to the right here, squaring up, and just launching one down that right sideline for Mike Williams in this game. So I think for the big play potential, I like Mike Williams to be, oh man, damn, I just made myself look fucking dumb, didn't I? I'm sorry. I'm talking about Justin Herbert, man. We're in the same game. I'm talking about Mike Williams. Either way, I see Herbert going long down the field for Mike Williams on a couple of attempts in this game. And yeah, let's talk about the other one. Just for Tua, let's just play the same exact thing out with Devontae Parker on that side, okay? That's what I was visualizing in my head. Now, Mike Williams, Herbert, big connection. I see it happening. Absolutely. Deep sleeper at wide receiver here is going to be Rashard Higgins, Cleveland wide receiver. Cleveland Browns are playing the Houston Texans at home. He's ECR receiver 51. Remember, a couple weeks ago when OBJ got injured, he had that big game filling in, and people were really high on him. I was really high on him coming out of that. Then they played that horrific weather game At home against Oak or against Vegas. Damn, I'm falling apart here. 5 minutes left, I'm falling apart. Rashard Higgins was supposed to be a big part of this offense going forward. Then we had that horrible weather game. He didn't do much. Really, Landry was the only wide receiver targeted in that game. Then they had their bye week. So now you have Austin Hooper coming back. So there's some talk about that. No talk about Rashard Higgins right now. I think he should be talked about. I think he's going to be in the mix to have a pretty big game here. And I do see him being a wide receiver 3 and absolutely having mid to high end wide receiver 2 upside this week. I won't be surprised if he's got, 5 or 6 catches for 75 or 80 yards in this game, with a couple of nice completions. So I like playing Rashard Higgins. Again, that's a deep, deep sleeper. I know it could go the wrong way, but I think you get him in there. Now, let's quickly go tight ends. Jimmy Graham, I mentioned it. Tight end 15 versus Minnesota. Tight end 15, why? Why is he tight end 15? He's getting 5-6 targets minimum a game. He's, getting red zone looks. He's getting volume. I think you got to play Jimmy Graham. Who are you playing over him? I mean, a lot of these guys that you're going to tell me are ahead of Jimmy Graham, I do not think are ahead of Jimmy Graham. So, who's ahead of Jimmy Graham? 15. Mike Gesicki. No, I don't like Gesicki more than Jimmy Graham. I didn't like John Smith more than Jimmy Graham. I do not like Eric Ebron more than Jimmy Graham. I don't like Hunter Henry more than Jimmy Graham. So, there's enough guys, enough reason for me to say you should be playing Jimmy Graham. Now, deep sleeper. This is deep, man. Deep before we get out of here, okay? You ready for this shit? Tyler Eifert. Tyler Eifert, he's the ECR 26. He seemed to have a little connection with Mr. Luton last week, okay? It wasn't, like he wasn't involved at all. And I liked what I saw a little bit. Just want to see his stats from last week. Has he had targets? He's had some targets. Week 4 and 5, obviously with Minshew. But week 4 and 5, he had 6 and 7 targets. And then last week, he had his best week. He had 5 targets, but caught 4 of them for 48 yards. I'm okay with that, trending upward a little bit. I think he could be in line for a 5 for 60 and a touchdown kind of a day. Is that a monster day? Absolutely not. Would 5 for 50 or 60 and a touchdown make you a top 10 tight end? Yep, sure as fuck will. And I think that's a big chance of happening. Again, I'm not going to bet the house on it. But my deep sleeper, baby, Tyler fucking Eifert. All right. So that's going to do it here. We went a little bit long, but hope you listened. Thanks for joining us. Listen, have a great weekend. Enjoy your Sunday of football. We'll be with you on Monday. Good luck, everybody. Well, be back on Monday for Rock Stars and Mock Stars. We'll see you then. Like, share, and subscribe to the videos, all that good stuff. Everyone, be safe.